do declare it's harder today than the business end of a corncob pipe.
What the fuck? In this week's episode of MLP, we get to see what Apple Bloom's been doing while AJ was in Manhattan. Considering what we saw last episode, I'm sure anything will be more interesting. Little AB doesn't have a big sister to compete with in this year's Sisterhood Social, so Big Mac decides to help out. Although, I'm not sure what he could do exactly. The event is for sisters. It's not like he's gonna dress and drag and pose as some distant cousin. Oh my god, he did. So what's good? As skeptical as I was about the whole Big Mac cross-dressing thing, Orchard Blossom is friggin' hilarious. I don't think I've ever laughed this hard at an MLP episode. I haven't gotten this much enjoyment out of a cross-dressing story since Bugs Bunny. I swear, this episode had me dying. Which reminds me, I should probably send the EMTs home. I'll do it later. Anyway, pretty much every scene with Orchard had me in stitches, and throughout the second act of the episode, they milk it for all it's worth. From her initial introduction to the singing performance, Orchard had me rolling. What's even funnier is that almost every pony knows what Big Mac is trying to do, and they just go along with it anyway. It's a lot more believable than having no one suspect something about his ruse. The humor wasn't all that it had to offer though. The comedy in the middle parts of the episode were bookended nicely by some heartwarming moments in the beginning and the end. In the beginning, we see how much Big Mac wants to rekindle his big bro relationship with Apple Bloom, and the first act does a good job at showing how important that relationship is to him. It's good for the story to have to convey that with a character that rarely has much to say, because then the writing can't rely on exposition as much as it usually does in other episodes. I'm also glad that Mac had some motivation to do what he did. Normally, in a situation like this, the whole cross-dressing thing would be something that the guy is forced into by another character. But here, not only was Mac willing to do this, but it was his idea. And the fact that he's doing all this just for the sake of his little sister makes it even better. For the ending, we get a rare personal moment with Apple Bloom and Big Mac, and I didn't think that it could get any sweeter. And then they had Big Mac speak. My jaw dropped to the floor when Mac practically poured his heart out to Apple Bloom, telling her about his feelings and his insecurities. It was a scene that was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. For once, we finally get to hear Big Mac speak his mind, and then we're hit with the fact that he feels so insignificant compared to AJ, and that he feels like he's not the role model brother that he used to be. He wasn't embarrassed that he was found out. He was disappointed because he felt like he let Apple Bloom down. And you really feel the weight of that disappointment. I love that this episode went the extra mile and gave us a story that was both incredibly funny and very emotional. It was a mix that didn't feel awkward or unnatural when it transitions from one tone to the other. So what's not so good? Well, there's really nothing about the episode itself that I have a problem with. There's only one thing that's a concern, and it's not really the fault of the episode itself. The cross-dressing trope is a really polarizing one. Some find it funny, others find it cringeworthy. And if you're in the latter camp, most, if not all of the episode's humor probably won't stick. I'm also not looking forward to the quote-unquote debate that'll spark over whether or not Big Mac is transgender, even though cross-dressing and identifying as transgender are two different things. So I'll probably be avoiding Tumblr for a while, cause we all know what goes on in there when something like this comes around. All jokes aside, this was a great episode. Between the sibling bonding and the hilarious cross-dressing scenes, this is definitely something that I'd rewatch once it hits Netflix. Oh, and Rainbow Dash and Scootaloo were competing as sisters too. I guess that's cool or whatever. Next week, the CMC are gonna help one of their friends in a campaign for class president. Why does that sound familiar? So what did you think of Brotherhooves Social? Let me know in the comments below or hit me up on social media. And consider supporting me on Patreon or commissioning me for art via PayPal. Until next time, keep it sketchy, folks.